Now that we know how to use the pen tool, we're going to take what we learned and apply it to selecting this orange right in the center. And the nice part is this kind of has a guide similar to the practice activity. So when you go to your pen tool, there's just a few adjustments you need to do before you start following this. So in the activity that we did, on the options here, we have it set to shape. For this one, we're actually going to switch it to path because we're going to be creating a clipping mask for this orange. So we're going to go ahead and select. So start by clicking here, so A. Then here we're going to click and drag. So click and drag and line it up here. And then C, click and drag your handle right there, and then you're going to keep doing that all the way around. G, H, here, J, and this is a straight line, so I'm going to hold shift, and then continue, click and drag. And then remember to always close the shape. Make sure you have that circle and click. Now, if you want to adjust any of these points, there is a path selection tool. So 2 spaces underneath this little arrow, you have, or it's direct selection, but by default, it gives you this one, which is path. We want to switch it to direct selection tool, and that's going to let you click and move points around. So even if you already made your path, you can always adjust things, and even the handles, you can adjust the handles in case you made a mistake anywhere. So now that we have our path, we are going to switch. So here's my layers panel. I'm going to switch to my paths panel. If you do not see this, remember, anytime you're missing any type of like a panel over here, you're going to go to window, and all of these are here to open. So paths is right there, but I already see that it's here, so I'm just going to click on that. And because we already created a path, it shows us that we have a work path. So what we're going to do is we're going to select down here. If I hover over, it says load path as a selection. So we're going to click on that. So what that does is the path that we created, it now is turned into a selection. And then you're going to apply a hue and saturation adjustment to this. So I'm going to go back to, if I can go back to layers, and still the selection is still going to be there. I'm going to go to my adjustments and then hue and saturation. Oh, whoops. And then notice how it created a mask for that path that we selected. So whenever we adjust things, because we selected that orange, it's creating a mask so that only that orange is affected. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch some saturation around, and the hue value, which is the first one, is going to be set to 17, and the other ones will be set to 0 and 0. So we're only changing the hue. We're gonna actually leave saturation and lightness alone. And then what I want you to do is hide the path guide because we don't really need it. And since we've done a lot of changes about now, go ahead and save. So save your stuff. Save it to your computer. This is gonna pop up. Save to your computer. Expand this, and then look for your, if you haven't created it yet, make sure you have a digital media folder. So I'm going to create a folder and call it the name of the project. I'm going to put 08 for right now because it's actually less than 8. save that. Click OK. Whenever this pops up, just click OK. Alright, so now that it's saved, let's move on to the next thing. We are going to pull up our ruler. So Command R will pull up our ruler. And we want to display them in pixels, or not pixels, inches. They're automatically set to pixels, so we're going to switch it to inches. So what I did is I right-clicked inches. That's the quickest way to switch it. And then I'm going to make sure that my hue and saturation layer is selected. That way the next layer or the next thing that we create will be put above the hue and saturation. So we're going to be adding text to this. So by selecting this, when we make the text, it'll automatically place the text above the current layer that is selected. So I selected my text tool right here, and we're going to select a font. I can either choose my options up here, or if you would like, go back to window, and I'm going to pull up my, it is called character. That's what the text is called. And we're going to do the Arial, I believe it's Arial bold. So Arial black is fine, but we need to set it to, actually, I think it has its own bold. So Arial, then here is where we go to bold. The font size is going to be 55 according to the book. And then it wants us to right align the text. So the alignment is actually up here. This is left aligned, center line. We're going to do right align. And we're going to switch the color of our text to white. And then now that we have all of our stuff set up, we're going to drag our text box from the bottom right corner, and we're going to make it about 9 inches wide by 1 inch tall. So this is why we switched the rulers to inches. That way when we click and drag, notice that the width and height box are on there, and it's in inches. If we were to have our rulers in pixels, then it would show us pixels. So they said, the book says 9 inches wide, so let's go 9 wide. Or let's see. Yes. So 9, about somewhere here, doesn't have to be perfect, by 1 inch tall, so somewhere here. And we are going to type in Citrus Lane Farms. And then if you click the check mark, it's like clicking enter. So we're going to highlight this and change the tracking just to adjust something. So by double clicking, it lets us select. Or a shortcut is if you double click the T right here, it highlights everything. So we're going to switch the tracking to, they want us to switch it to -25. Tracking is the spacing between all of the text. So you'll see right now if I type in -25, click return. So it kind of condenses everything because we're going negative. If we go the opposite route, it spreads it further apart. So that's what tracking does. So we're going to set it to -25, and we're going to do all caps. So if you clicked here, I believe this one, yes. That way we don't have to retype anything, and we just click the all caps. And if you need to, we can go switch to our move tool and reposition this so that it's somewhere there. And I'm going to go ahead and save again. So Command S, anytime you make a couple changes, get into the habit of saving. So the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add a flower, like kind of like a little logo right here. So luckily we have presets that are loaded into Photoshop already. There's shapes that you have. So right now you're probably seeing a rectangle tool right here underneath this little arrow and above your hand tool. If you right click, there is a custom shape tool. And when you switch to the custom shape tool, up here in your options, you'll notice that you have a few shapes. So if I open this, we're gonna look for flowers. I don't know why I have doubles. So I'm gonna open flowers, and we're going to pick a flower to add to our little citrus. So we're gonna look for this one right here. And in order to create this flower, all we have to do is click and drag right here, and it creates the flower. If you need to redo it, just Command Z to undo. I forgot to change the color, so I'm gonna switch this to white so that it matches. So go back to custom shape, my flower, click return. I think I'm gonna do a fill instead of a outline because that's what it looks like on the book. So I'm gonna delete that, go back, let's put a fill, a white fill, no stroke, just the fill. So click and drag, that's better. And if you need to resize it, you can. So here's the resizing. Notice how you can stretch it out. If you want it to stay proportionate, you can hold shift and it stays in proportion. And then return and it'll keep the picture. And then we can go to the move tool and move this here. And then we're gonna make sure our flower is still selected and double click and let's rename it flower. Now in our fill, oh okay, so according to our book, they actually want us to change the color. So let's go back to our shape tool right here, because if we go to our move tool, we don't have the options. So go back to your shape tool. That way we can change the color, and the book says they want us to pick a yellow swatch. So click on this and then expand the RGB swatch presets, which is this one, and let's click yellow. And it'll switch the flower to yellow, which is nice. And then again, if you need to reposition it for any reason, just make sure you switch to your move tool. And that's it. So we're gonna save this. We're gonna export it as a JPEG and turn in our JPEG and export.